So let's go over the process behind graphing these quadratic functions. Like I've been trying to say in class, there are 3 steps behind it. In a way, there's 2 steps to the first. There's 2 parts. The first part is finding what we call the vertex. Okay, so right here at the beginning of the problem, what we have is the vertex is the bottom. It's the point where you're either let's say in a concave up parabola, our vertex would be the lowest point down here at the bottom. In a concave down parabola, we are having a parabola that looks like this. So in a concave down parabola, our vertex would be the top point. So it's whatever the hump is, whether it's down here in a valley or up here like a hill. This part that's got the top of the parabola or the bottom of the parabola is the vertex. Okay, so we need to discover where this point needs to go on the graph. That's our first part. And then our second part, so our first part is deal with the vertex. All right, and that is going to be a point that is going to be an x and y coordinate. So we'll need an x coordinate and a y coordinate of our vertex. The second part is going to be finding the y-intercept. And that part's easy because that y-intercept is just the c value. So we can actually go ahead, if we want to, and get straight to it. And we could actually go ahead and we already know that our y-intercept is going to be 5 because that's our c value. We know that we can list out our ABC values. So we know that A is whatever's in front of the x squared, which in this case is 1 because there's nothing listed there. We know that our B value is -4. And we know that our C value is 5. We already took care of the y-intercept. That's the second part. So let's go back to the first part. And we need to figure out what the vertex is. So to find the x coordinate of the vertex, we need to say x is -b over 2a. Now, here's the best way you can take care of all these negative signs using parentheses, where your a and b need to go. Well, our b is -4, so we put our -4 inside this parentheses, and now we got 2 negatives. So that is going to help us make sure we keep track of everything, because 2 negatives make a positive. So we'll be able to keep track of that as long as we use our parentheses and put everything in right. Okay, our a value is 1, so we'll put 1 where it goes. Okay, so we've got +4 divided by 2, and that is going to be 2. So our x coordinate of our vertex is going to be 2. Now we need to find out what our y component is. Well, the way we do that is just go over to our original equation right here, and we're going to plug that in with parentheses. Instead of writing x, we're going to write parentheses. So x squared minus 4x, well, parentheses rather, plus 5. Okay, now we're going to put this value that we found for x, we're going to put that value in here in our equation. So 2 goes here, 2 goes here. Okay, well 2 squared is 4. -4 times 2 is -8. And plus 5, of course. Okay, so that means we've got 4 minus 8 with plus 5. So that is going to be y equals +1. All right, this would boil down to -4. And adding a 5 would give us +1. Okay, so let's move our vertex up to a x value of 2 and a y value of 1. So that's where our vertex goes. All right, because we are going back to our coordinates here, our y value is 1, so we put that in here. So our vertex coordinate is 2, 1. Now our y-intercept is just our c value. C equals y-intercept. So that's why we're putting that on 5 right there, because our c is 5. Let's go ahead and check that. All right, next, let's try another one. All right, so, okay, looks like our A, B, C is going to be, let's see, 2 is our A value, -8 is our B value, and 3 is our C value. Okay, so go ahead and try to find the x-coordinate of the vertex. Let's find vertex first. Vertex is going to be here. Let's say that's -b over 2a. And let's make sure we use our parentheses. Now, I'm going to let you pause the video and fill in these parentheses yourself and see if we can get down to the answer. All right, so go ahead and pause. And when you are done, come back and I'll plug the rest in for you. So here we go. Assuming you've done this already. Be careful, again, we've got this -b, which that negative needs to go inside those parentheses. So we're going to have, it's not always going to be like that. Sometimes it'll be positive. So just keep an eye out for that. Our a value is 2, so if you got 2 in for that, you were right. So we've got +8 over 2 times 2, which is 4. So we've got +8 over 4, so our x value is 2. I think that's what it was last time, but it's not always going to be like that. But anyway, in order to find our y of our vertex, all right, so let's make our vertex points. We know that 2 is here. Let's find out what y is. Again, same thing as before. We're going to put our equation back here, but we're going to use parentheses this time. 8 times parentheses plus 3. All right. So this needs to go in here. And so that's going to put 2 in this parentheses, 2 in this parentheses. All right. So 2 squared is 4. And then, so we got 2 times 4, so we got 8. 2 times 2 squared is 8. Now we've got -16 over here, and we've got +3 over here. So -8 plus 3 is going to be -5. So our y is going to be -5. All right, so we'll put -5 here. Okay, so that means we're going to go to the point 2, -5. We notice that our parabola looks like it's concave up, and our c value is 3, so that means that's what our y-intercept value is, so we know that that's right. Okay, so this is the same way it works on the homework packet. So okay, so this process works the same way on the homework packet. You're given a quadratic equation like this, and you just need to graph it on the provided graph. Now, the homework packet kind of puts the graph in the right area for you to be working with it. So in this case, so again, I've got a new version of the homework nobody has, and I've got the answer already displayed for you. So all you really need to do is take that same process where we're going to find the vertex, right? We're going to find the vertex, and we are going to use that process again with the -b over 2a to find where that needs to go. So let's find the x value first, which will be -b over 2a. That's going to be negative, put our parentheses, 2 in parentheses. Okay, so in this case, our A is -1, our B is 8, and our C is -12. Right, and now this point in time, on this particular, this will be a little bit of a different strategy because we don't really have a -12 to plot for our Y-intercept. So we're not really worried about Y-intercept right now. We're just going to have to do this the old-fashioned way by doing the vertex first, and then we'll actually look for finding these 2 points, which is basically the X-intercepts. Just, I mean, it's pretty much the same thing. So we're going to plug in 8 into our B. Notice there's only one negative sign now because we had a positive B, so we don't have to worry about 2 negatives making a positive. What we do have to worry about, though, is the -1 for our A value. So we'll put that in there. So it turns out that these negative signs will cancel out because we'll have -8 over -2, which will just be +4. And so that is why we've got a +4 here on our axis of symmetry, as we like to call it. Next step, of course, is taking y and plugging in that newfound value for x. And we're going to remember that we've got a negative sign here this time. So let's give ourselves a little more space. So we got 4 squared plus 8 x, which is 4 minus 12. Okay, so that will be so let's remember order of operations here. Let's look at the parentheses. Let's look at the exponents, and then we'll multiply. So right now we've got 4 squared, which is 16, and then let's throw the negative on top of that. So we've got -16. Remember, when that negative is inside the parentheses, then we square it and it becomes positive. If it's outside the parentheses, then chances are we're going to wind up with a negative in the end because anytime we're squaring something, that is going to become positive, so that the squared part is going to be positive, but we're throwing that negative on after the fact. So watch out for that. Watch your order of operations. We're going to have 8 times 4, which is 32, and minus 12. So we've got 16, -16 plus 32. That's going to come out to positive 16 minus 12. So 16 minus 12 is 4. All right, so that's why our y value is also 4. So our vertex here today is 4, 4. Okay, cool. Now, in Khan Academy, we're looking for the y-intercept. Here, sometimes you'll be able to find it, like in this problem. If we go ahead for this example problem, yeah, sure, you could look at this and be like, okay, well, c is 0, so our y-intercept would be right here, and we're done. Good. Well, not going to be so easy over here. So let's look at, I guess, our x-intercept. So when you know that this is what you're dealing with, and you know that you already saw this at the beginning of the problem, or you saw that was going to be -12, and we can see that the -12 will be way down here, and it's not really going to help us today. So let's take a look at the x-intercept. So y equals, that's probably going to be off the video. Let's move it up here to the top. So y equals -x squared plus 8x. This is our original equation. Well, let's say if we want that to be 0, so if we want this y to be 0, goes to nothingness, that's going to be, where are we expecting the parabola to hit the x-axis? That's what y of 0 would mean. Okay, so how about this? You can use the quadratic equation to find the 2 roots, or zeros. We used the vertex formula over here to find where x is equal to the maximum, but that does not tell us where x is equal to the solutions that turn this equation to 0, which is what would help us find the x-intercepts. So we can factor, or we can use the quadratic equation. But long story short, what we're going to do here is find our two solutions. So I like the quadratic equation. Let's plug that in. We know that we've got negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So that's going to be negative 8 plus square root of all that stuff. I know that 8 squared is 64, so I'm just going to go ahead and plug that in. Minus 4 times negative 1. I always like to write this part out because it can help me keep track of my negatives and positives. So I've got 4 times negative 1. So negative 4 times negative 1 times negative 12. So 3 negatives is going to equal a negative. So 4 times 12 is going to be 48. So basically I've got negative 8 plus square root of 64 minus 48 over the square root, no, sorry, we're done with square roots, over 2 times negative 1, since that's our a value. So one thing we'll need to take care of is 64 minus 48, which is 16. Okay, so we've got negative 8 plus square root of 16 over negative 2. And now also, since we've got that plus minus sign over here, we're also going to have to deal with negative 8 minus square root of 16 over negative 2. Okay, so either way, it's going to be simple because we know that the square root of 16 is really going to be 4. Okay, so we know that we got negative 8 plus 4 over negative 2, which is going to be, let's think, negative 4 over negative 2. Negative 4 over negative 2 would be positive 2. And we're going to also have negative 8 minus 4 over negative 2, which would be negative 12 over negative 2, which would be positive 6. Okay, so there we go. There's positive 6. And so we're going to plot a point right there. And there's positive 2. So we're going to plot a point right there. Okay, so now we've got point, point, point. Just draw your curve. Kind of, you can kind of just make it pretty close. If you did it like that, I would accept it as the right answer. If you did it like this, like a triangle, no, come on, don't do that. That's not a parabola. I don't want to see you do that. And I also don't want to see you just plot 3 points and call it good. No, draw the parabola. Like, make it make sense, okay? I want to see that you know that this is a curvy feature that goes up and curves back down. That's because we know that this is showing us a negative a value, so we know that is concave down, right? So I need you to show me that you know how that works. If you didn't know how concavity worked, you might just get really confused there. But all right, so we got these 3 critical points. You could sometimes you'll need an x-intercept like what we just found. Sometimes you'll need a y-intercept. Either way, like on this next point, right here we've got an a of 2, a b of 4, and a c of 0. So we know that we can plot our y-intercept right there as 0. And we know that we can do negative b over 2a. So that's negative 4 over 2 times 2. So that's going to be negative 4 over 4, which is negative 1. Okay, so we know that our x value of our vertex is going to be at negative 1. Okay, go ahead and plug that into the equation where we have 2 times negative 1 squared plus 4 times negative 1. Okay, well, then that's here, like I was mentioning earlier, negative 1 is going to get squared. So we have negative 1 squared is going to become positive 1. All right, times 2, and then add in the negative 4. So that'd be minus 4. So 2 minus 4 is negative 2. So that's why we put our vertex here at the bottom of our concave up parabola. We can tell it's concave up because of positive 2. And this is, since we know that one of our points is here, we know the other point is here. All right. For the other part of this homework packet, and for one of the Khan Academy assignments, one of them is about factoring. So either way, if we're factoring, or if, the other way of thinking about it is we're solving for x. We're solving for the two values, like on all these answers, we've got two values that satisfy this equation. All this here equals 0. Okay, so on the homework packet, be careful, it gives you different variables for, like we say x squared minus whatever x minus whatever, but they're going to give you different variables other than x. So don't let this get you confused about your a, b, and c values. And even though our in this equation, for example, our variable is apparently b. Well, it's all, it's the same thing as x. We're just saying x squared minus 3x minus 28. So if you want to rewrite it and say that, because that might be less confusing to you, that's fine. It doesn't change the fact that our a, b, c values are a, b, c. Okay, so b is going to be negative 3, c is going to be negative 28, and a is going to be 1. All right, so we can either do this by factoring. So at the beginning of the assignment, you'll see you can do this by factoring. Well, that means that our factors need to multiply up to our c value, but they need to add to our b value. So for b, which is negative 3, the two factors we have need to add to that. The two factors need to multiply in order to get to 28. So that's not very many options. We got 2 times 14. How about negative 7 times positive 4? Okay, that would be negative 28. If we add those together, we'd have negative 7 plus positive 4 would be negative 3. Okay, so this all checks out. So that means that one of our x factors is going to be x minus 7, and then another one would be x plus 4. That means that the two values for x that would satisfy this equation would be positive 7 and negative 4. Because if we plug either one of those in for x, at least one of our factors, or at least one of these parentheses, will contain 0, and then our answer will equal 0, which is what we're looking for. So positive 7 and negative 4 are the two answers for this. Okay, so we can also find that answer by using the quadratic formula. So later on in the packet, it's going to ask you to solve these by the quadratic formula. You can always use either one, depending on which one you think is more helpful to you at the time. But for the purposes of this assignment, I need you to at least show me that you can do both. So you need to probably do that by following the directions. So solve these by factoring, solve the other ones by the quadratic formula. So, but if you can do both, each question if you want, you can actually do it once by the quadratic formula and then once by factoring to check, make sure you got the same thing for both, and that means you probably got it right. Okay, so if we're going to use the quadratic formula for this, that is negative b plus or minus 2a. Oh, sorry, what? No. That's negative b plus or minus b squared, square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Okay, so you should have this memorized by now. So that means we're going to have negative 3 plus all this stuff, which is going to be 9 minus 4 times 1 times negative 28. 4 times 28. Ooh, that's going to be big. 112. 2 negatives make a positive. And then we've got 9 as well. So we've got square root of 121. So we've got positive 3 plus square root of 121. I don't know if you have that memorized. I've got it memorized. I know that that's 11. Divided by 2a. So what we've got here is 3 plus 11 over 2. And that's a bad and sign. And 3 minus 11 over 2. All right. On one hand, we've got the plus. On the other hand, we've got the minus. So 3 plus 11 over 2 is 14 over 2, which is 7. And 3 minus 11 over 2 is negative 8 over 2. So, which is negative 4. So, we got the same things that we had before. We got positive 7 and negative 4. So we know that either way we do it, we're going to get the right answer. For example, it might be a way that you could solve this one. So we know that our A is 1, our B is negative 3, and our C is 0. That's going to kind of help things because there's going to be some, anytime we can plug 0 into the equation, that's it. I mean, I'm a fan of that because it's less work. Okay, so negative 3, so negative 3 plus b squared, which is 9, minus 4ac. Well, the 4a doesn't really matter. The c is 0, so all of this stuff is gonna be 0. Okay, so that's great. We don't even have to worry about that. Less work. 2a, 2 times 1 is 2. All right, so we've got positive 3 plus square root of 9 over 2. So that means that we're going to have 3 plus 3 over 2, which is 6 over 2, which is 3. That's one answer. And then the other answer is 3 minus 3 over 2, which is 0. So that way we've got 3 and 0 as our answers. Okay, we can also do that by factoring. And the way we do that by factoring is notice that we can use the distributive property to pull out an m. And then if we've pulled out an m from one, then that means that, we can pull out m from the other one. All right, so let's do that. So m squared minus 3m. Well, we pulled an m out, so now we're going to have just minus 3 inside here equals 0. Okay, so that means that anytime the m equals 0, the whole thing equals 0. Or anytime m equals positive 3, the whole thing will equal 0. So that's how we know m equals 0 and m equals positive 3. Okay.